Alright, today it's gonna be usual stuff. You've probably seen or heard much of this before, but I'm just gonna go through a bunch of records by a bunch of people. It's the usual suspects. There will be some fun names thrown in there, but I'm checking my usual stuff, so it's gonna be my usual outputs. That's it. Maybe this will be fun. We have Akiyama. I did this in alphabetical order. We're gonna have a few key terms we'll have to know. Non-Rushmore means not Delial, Seto, Yojimbo, or myself. So Akiyama has the highest icon rate of any player other than those four at 52.38% of tournaments entered. He has at least made the quarterfinals. Yes, players later on have to advance fewer rounds to make quarterfinals, but they also have tougher opponents. I think I think it's pretty clear it's easier to rack up a lot of quarterfinals now, um, because basically you can just look at how many players have had quarterfinal streaks and how many players did before, and some of those players played before and were very good and are putting up much longer streaks now. So I think we must accept it is easier to get quarterfinal streaks now than it was then, and Akiyama's career has mostly been recent. That said, this is incredibly impressive. Well done to him. He's the newest player to the site to break 2300 ELO. There are only 10 players total who have done so. I list them here rather than go and list them individually on their pages. I have counted up all the major and minor events people have won. There have been 150 some winners of major, like Golden Boots, Weekly Opens, all that. And Akiyama is in second most wins, clearly ahead of third, which is Turds at I think around 18. And I also checked some players' records versus other players. Akiyama is tied for the best record in tournaments against Cookie at 2 0. Next up, we have Aurora. We are going to be getting some old names because a lot of what I was checking was first to do something or fastest to do something, and first is often going to be early players, and it's a fun way to include them. So the first player to get icons on tied for first player to get icons on both their first tournaments. This happened in 0304. I'll try to list when achievements were done. And the first player to reach two semifinals because they got a semifinals and a finals in their first two tournaments, which is an incredible start. And briefly, actually, the highest rated player by Elo on the site. Beastay is the first and only player to defeat Doc Evil in an official tournament in 2005. And also, incredibly, Doc Evil and Karmazin both, they played between them five tournaments, and they won three and made the quarterfinals and finals in the other two. But both the other two were SE Tifa. Doc Evil and Karmazin, between them, entered four different tournaments. There was only one they overlapped, and that was the only one neither of them won because Beast Day defeated Doc Evil in the finals, and we'll get later to the player that defeated Karmazin. This is the only tournament either of those players ever lost in, and Beast Day was the player to win it. We have Bryce, one of three players who has played multiple tournaments and never lost a game before reaching an icon. We have Broccoli, first player to win TTAC in 2003, first player to defend a tournament title, win a defender's title match thing in 2004, first player to win two TTACs as in 2009, first player to fastest player to two titles, not named Doc Evil. It took her six tournaments to take down two titles. First player to win the same tournament in consecutive attempts. She didn't play any TTACs in between. And player with the most distance between two titles won, with none in between, not counting things like the kind of TTA dying and then being reborn. And one of three players who has played at least two finals and has not lost a match in the finals. Really nice resume for Broccoli here. Chickeny, first player to reach three finals without a title, did that by 2013. And given that they started playing at an elite level around 2011 2012, that was an insane run. And the best record anyone has versus Vid in tournaments. Cookie is our first player that achieved three icons, including a title, did that by 2004, so very few tournaments done at that point. First player not named Doc Evil to get two titles. Much like I'll sometimes give things and say highest scoring player that's not on Mount Rushmore, not in what I count as the big four, we will also frequently say first player or first player to do something besides Doc Evil or sometimes besides Karmazin. I will also call this sometimes lasting players, meaning of people who played at least four tournaments. So cutting Doc Evil, Karmazin, sometimes cutting Virgil, though I think Virgil played four. Eighth in total wins at 72. In win percentage and wins, I list anyone who's in the top 10. One of three players undefeated in at least two finals. They are now 3-0. So I think, actually, I should have updated this. They are the only player undefeated in three finals, is Cookie. And one of eight players who has three championships. Then we have Delial, the first player to three titles, achieved it in 2008 with his insane 07-08 run. The second fastest to reach three titles, taking only 13 tournaments. The first player to win two different SEs. The first and only player on the site's history with 8 and 9 championships. He is the all-time leader in championships. He has 9. Second place is 7. The first and only player to win both 5 and 6 different types of tournaments, meaning things like TTAC with its mixed format, SE or TW with its all open format, closed tournaments like Garland or He Won Onion Night. So we have open, we have mixed, we have closed, we have team tournaments like Team Rhinoas, that's a fourth type. A fifth type is the new random tournaments, and I'm not sure what his sixth is, but he has 6 different types. No one else is more than 4. He is tied for having the most icons in distinct years of the site's life. In 9 different years, Deli has earned an icon. In the return, I mentioned Akiyama had won 30 major or minor events. Deli's at first with 32. Between them, they have won 62 of 150-some things won. If you add turds in, they've won 80. That's over half of events in the return of all types have been won by one of Deli, Akiyama, or turds. He is also the all-time leader in pure open icons, with 14 of his icons coming from entirely open events. But also, because it got too small on the page, I split Delial into 2 sections. He is the all-time leader in titles, he is the all-time leader in tournament wins, with quite a lead over the field, and Yojimbo in second is not active. Same thing for icons. He is massing a really huge lead, especially because second place is not active. He is also the all-time leader in wins versus other winners. I'm the one in second there. I'm not particularly active, so his lead there is likely only to grow. He has the highest finals win rate of anyone, not with 3+ finals, because Cookie is 3 for 3, but of 4+ finals, because Deli is 9 for 10. He's 6th all-time in win rate of lasting players, meaning at least 4 tournaments played at 72.2%, as well as, again, leading basically in every category for things he's achieved. And he has the best records in tournament history against Kamikaze, which I spelled wrong there, Kaus Debonair, D, and Meta, I guess it's pronounced. That was a lot for Deli. Let's move on. Demonic Avenger was the first player to win a team tournament in 2009. Ooh, I missed one for Nightwish. Insert for Nightwish later. Hopefully I remember in 7 minutes or whatever when we get to it. But Nightwish, I believe, is the only player to win 2 team tournaments. I think. We'll get to that later. D has the best record of anyone versus Yojimbo at 4-1 and versus Scythe at 2-0. D, I was trying to figure out, like, he's obviously a player worthy of, like, popping up on this list. He has this early peak where he makes 2 semifinals, then he comes back and has this later peak where he gets this win and a couple other decent runs. But there was nothing quite where he made it until I started looking at head-to-head records, and obviously his record versus Yojimbo is fantastic. Doc Evil, our first player to win 2 tournaments in 2004, our first player to make 3 finals, our first player to make 3 semifinals. I thought that would be funny to put after because obviously if you made 3 finals, you've made 3 semifinals, but it is remarkable that he made 3 finals before anyone else had made 3 semifinals. So it was the first to both of those landmarks. He's the first and only player to ever win 18 consecutive tournament matches. I believe basically only him and Mount Rushmore and like 1 or 2 other people have ever won 10 consecutive matches, but he's pretty far out in the lead with 18. He is the all-time leader in win rate. He is the all-time highest win rate in Icon round games. He's one of 3 players to have never been defeated before earning an Icon. In fact, he's the only player to have never been defeated before making the finals. He's one of 3 players to have never lost to a non-winner that has played more than like 1 or 2 tournaments. And he's the first and fastest player to break 2200 ELO. Doc Evil had a 3 tournament run, and it was unbelievable and untouchable historically. We have Dream Virus, who, if not for Doc Evil, maybe it wasn't Doc Evil, but basically gets his 3 quarterfinals in a row right about when Doc Evil gets his run. So it is completely eclipsed and doesn't quite get him here. But the 3 quarterfinals in a row, he goes like 10-3 over 3 turns. It's one of those things that like in a bunch of different things I looked at almost qualified him, but didn't quite. But I did want to list it. But he does get here by having the tied best record for Seto at 2-0. Of course, you never know when you caught someone. Dream Virus tended to play him before Seto's absolute peak, but Seto was incredible from the very start, so it's still an unbelievably worthy achievement. Great Sephiroth, 5th all time in win rate of lasting players, and I believe that's 2nd all time with people not on Mount Rushmore of lasting players. Highest championship rate by a non Rushmore player. He won 15% of the tournaments he entered. That is more than 1 out of every 7 tournaments. That is insane when you think about how many good players are playing. He is one of 8 players with 3 championships, and his best record, he has the best record of anyone versus Nightwish, the only one to have won multiple matches against him without ever losing. Notably, Nightwish is the only person not on Mount Rushmore of lasting players with a higher win rate than Great Sephiroth, but Great Sephiroth has the head-to-head. For my money, there's a clear top 4 all time. Whatever order you want to put Seto, Delialio, Jimbo, and myself, I think that's the top 4. There's a very good case for Doc Evil as finishing out the top 5, but I kind of think the best case of anyone else is Great Sephiroth. I'm not sure how hot a take that is. I do most of the talking around here, so we don't get much pushback. So I really don't know if this is all that hot a take, but I would put Great and have put Great Sephiroth filling out the top 5. We have Jadot. Now, Jadot did a bunch of remarkable things. He is famous for his finals run in Eris, which was 6-1 against really strong competition. But actually, the thing he did here that really broke on was he's the first player not named Doc Evil with 3 semifinals, which he had achieved by 2006. His Eris run was surrounded by 2 other semifinals, at least one of them also in a 7-rounder. So this is 3 tournaments in pretty close proximity that I think he went to combined 15-3. Just phenomenal. Really great early run. Kamikaze, okay, he's got a lot. He's tied for first player to get icons in both of their first 2 tournaments. He was the first player to get 3 icons in a row, which I believe he did in his first 3 tournaments. Yep, he's the first player to get icons in their first 3 tournaments. He did this before Doc Evil came about, so he gets to show up here. Dream Virus doesn't. He's the first player to get 6 and 7 icons. He's the first player to win 11 consecutive tournament matches not named Doc Evil, and possibly the only person to have done so besides Mount Rushmore and Doc Evil. I'm not exactly sure on that. He's 10th in all-time wins. He's 7th in all-time win rate among lasting players. Again, there are players who played very little time, and if you play 2 tournaments and go 80%, that's incredible, but it's a lot less incredible than someone who plays 30 tournaments and goes 71.74%. He's the first player not named Doc Evil to break 2200 ELO. He's also, amusingly, was ranked the 2nd highest peak rating in 3 consecutive years. And he is the only player to have beaten myself multiple times without me getting any wins against them. Good job, Kamikaze. What a great player. I sometimes may underrate Kamikaze historically. You look at this resume, it's pretty good. Okay, we have Karmazin. He's the all-time leader in win rate. People not named Doc Evil. Again, a short-term player, played 2 tournaments. He's one of 3 players that was never defeated before earning an icon. He's one of 3 players to have never lost to a non-winner, and he is what? He is not the tied fastest to reach 6 icons. That must be Kamikaze. I must have meant to put that under Kamikaze and put that here, because that is obviously not the case. He played 2 tournaments, he certainly didn't get 6 icons. I bet this is Kamikaze, almost certainly given how fast he reached other milestones. Yeah, we know he's the first to get 6, and I think he was tied fastest as well. Alright, so shout out again to Kamikaze. We have Kaz Debonair, the first player to win a tournament, the first player to win a Triad Wars, same tournament. He was so close to being the first player to get 4 icons in a year. He was the second to do so. 2008 is probably the year where the most different legends of the game have just unbelievable years. And Kaus Debonair is probably somehow only the sixth best performer of the year, and he does something no one has ever done in a year before that with four different icons, including a finals. And this is before tournaments got really short. This is an insane achievement, arguably more impressive than his win of a tournament in 2003, 5 years later, as he was leading Divas to various results. But he just misses out on the record there, but I wanted to include it. He also has the best record of anyone versus Sujiro, the only person with multiple wins and no losses against him. Then we have Kazakh. I wanted to put him here for the two finals without a win, but he was actually the second to do that. I know everyone talked about him as the player who had done that, but there was an early player that did that just doesn't get talked about that much. But Kazakh was the second to do that, but he also is one of the players with a really excellent record versus Seto. And so that firmly earns him a spot on this list. Then we've got Kana, whose name we have had many fights about on these videos, but he did beat Kaus to get 4 icons in a year, getting it one tournament before Kaus did with one tournament left in the year. He also was the first to get 5 in a year because he also got an icon in that last tournament, as Kaus hit 4 the first after Kana to do so, but Kana got to 5. He's also the first player to get 6 icons in a row, because going into that year, he had an icon at the end of 2007. He is the fastest to reach 10 icons, doing it in only 16 tournaments. For a while, Kana was the all-time leader in icons, which should be listed here, I think. He was the first and fastest to 15 icons. Well, first there makes it clear that he must have been the all-time leader at that point. He is the 6th in total wins, and he is one of 3 players undefeated in the finals. There are between 11 and 13 or 14 players, I think, that have a legitimate case to be in the top 10. Kana is very much one of these players. I think Kana is kind of close on resume to Kamikaze. I tend to lean Kamikaze. But Kana's resume is really impressive. And one of the things that might put Kana ahead for you is I think the years Kana was dominating was against more difficult opposition than the ones Kamikaze was dominating. But then the argument for Kamikaze, I forgot to put in what I think the best tournaments won were. The argument for Kamikaze is that SE Squall is one of the strongest tournaments anyone's ever won, and that he came back years after his peak to win that tournament against the new brand of players, beating, among others, myself and I think MC. So I probably put Kamikaze a touch over Kana, but Kana is an all-time great. And again, it kind of sucks that the top 10, there are 12 players that so clearly have resumes worthy, or 13 players. And Kana is, I think, on my official rankings down to 11th, but is just so obviously a top 10er. We have Lionheart. Players not named Doc Evil or Karmazin. Lionheart has the all-time highest win rate in tournaments. It is possible Lionheart is actually undefeated in tournaments, because it's possible his loss was an activity loss that was never played. Our records of the early tournaments do not tell us which games were activity losses. We do, however, know that in the tournament he went farthest and made the semifinals, beating Beastay, who went on to win that tournament. He then withdrew from the tournament. Beastay regained his spot and went on to win the whole thing. It is perfectly possible that if Lionheart continues, he's the one who defeats Doc Evil and really, emblazons his name in history. Next up, we have Mafi Josie, the first player to reach 4 semifinals without reaching a final. Yes, that's slightly tortured of a qualification, but Mafi Josie was great and so dominant early, and just so many solid runs, never getting a final, but so often coming so close. And tied for the best record versus Cookie. Mafi Josie, one of the early greats of the game. If you were saying who are the top 5 players of all time in 2006, Mafi Josie is firmly in that conversation. Now, probably more like 33rd or something. But early on, top 5. There have been a lot of years. MC, the first player to hit the cycle, as I call it. In baseball, if you get a single, double, triple, and home run in the same game, that's called hitting the cycle. I like to say MC is the first player to hit the cycle in triple triad, getting these 4 different results in a single calendar year. He's the first player, and only the brothers have done this, to defeat a family member in the finals of a tournament. He's 10th all-time in win rate of lasting players, and he has the tied best record for Slash of Time. I had surprising trouble finding something for MC to get. The problem is he wasn't quite the fastest to do something because he had a relatively slow start, then an insane run in 2010-11. That's one of the great 2 year runs. If I didn't find a way to say this, but if you exclude Mount Rushmore and say Doc Evil, MC's 2010-11 run is probably the best run anyone's had, and it is like not. It is very comparable to Mount Rushmore. I think it is above Nightwish's best runs. I think it's above Kamikaze's. I think it's above Great Sephiroth's. He has a 2 year run that is unbelievable, and then not that much outside of it. And because he played a bunch outside of it, his averages go down a bit. But MC can be a difficult player to rate historically because his absolute peak, I think, makes him look closer to Mount Rushmore than anyone else. But his averages look like he's more towards the bottom of the top 10. So you could argue him in a lot of different spots historically. Anyway, we have Meta, who's ninth all time in win rate of lasting players. Didn't play that long, but certainly played long enough to qualify for this category. I was glad this was one of the last things I checked before I decided to start recording the video, and I was glad to see him qualifying for this in some form or other because he was clearly a great player. He basically had one problem, which you may have noticed in the Delial section. He kept getting beaten by Delial, and basically every one of his deep runs ends with him losing to Deli, except the one he won the title. But like he also made a finals, loses in the finals to Deli. He has another quarters, I think, where he loses to Deli. He has an earlier exit versus Deli. If not for Deli, Meta might have a significantly higher place in history. His place in history is like, he's 25th best all time. He's fantastic. But it could be notably higher if Deli never played. Then we have Midas, the first player to reach 4 finals without winning a title. The only player to have reached, I should say, and only player to have reached 4 finals without a title. Some people tend to be low on this kind of thing. I'm very high on it. That's super fantastic. Why? Some people are like, sports are so stupid. It's like, well, they made the finals a lot but kept losing. That proves they didn't have it. Yeah, but making the finals is better than making the semis or quarters. And you make the finals that often, even if for some reason your level drops in the finals, which I don't think Midas's does. Who cares? Like, you've still given yourself a chance repeatedly. You're doing great. Anyway, Nightwish. Didn't actually find that much on Nightwish either. Neither of the Polish brothers. They both they landed at a time when there were a lot of other greats happening, but they're so impressive. Tied fastest player to reach 4 finals, took him just 13 tournaments. Third all time in win rate of lasting players and highest of non-Rushmore, but that's third all time, so that's ahead of half of Mount Rushmore. Highest finals rate of a non-Rushmore player, made a finals over of a quarter of the tournaments he ever played, and made a semifinals over 2/5 of tournaments he ever played, both highest of non-Rushmore players. Nightwish is incredible. And I would say the people who have an argument for top 5 that aren't Rushmore are Doc Evil, Great Sephiroth, Nightwish, and MC. You can maybe make a case for Kamikaze. I know Slash would make a case for himself, or himself in like 6th. And I think that's legit, but I think he doesn't quite have a case for top 5. But I think Nightwish does. One thing that helps Great Sephiroth over Nightwish is Nightwish leads in a bunch of categories, but Great Sephiroth does have the head-to-head. How much is 2 matches worth? I don't know. I think a bit. Piggyman, this is not really a record, but for my money, he is the strongest triple triad player to never win a tournament, and he is tied in best record versus Slash of Time. Rayaminator is the first and only player to win 10 games in a single tournament. He's actually done quite a bit. He was racking up icons, but it's a little easier to rack up icons now, so some of his things where he was pushing for a record kind of disappeared. But in the first closed tournament, it was double elimination. It's the only double elimination tournament we've had. Ray, I believe, loses in round 1 and goes on to fight his way through loser's bracket, crushing absolutely everyone to make the finals, where he resets the bracket to make it to grand finals, only to lose them. Incredible run, really impressive. Then we have Saber, probably a name you didn't expect here. Player of the, I guess, early 2010s or late 2000s. And she was quite strong and didn't end up having deep tournament runs, but in part that was because she had absolutely awful luck in who she was paired against in tournaments. We haven't had enough women playing triple triad. I think so far on this list we've seen Broccoli, Bryce, and Saber. Am I missing someone? I might be missing someone, but anywho. Then we have Scythe of the many names, which makes it a huge pain to keep records, and I like records, so pain for me. He's the first player not named Doc Evil to get 3 consecutive semifinals, which was a semis, finals, and win run. Just one of the all-time great runs, especially at that point in time. A bunch of people, more people have done it, but basically the only people who had anything close to that were your Doc Evils and your Delis and your Setos. First player not named Doc Evil to get 3 consecutive semifinals, including a title, and all-time leader in improving win rate the further into the tournament you are. In round 1, he's trash. In the quarterfinals, he's a monster. Seto. There's a lot for Seto. I considered breaking it into 2 pages. Tied fastest 13 tournaments and the first player to ever reach 4 finals. The first player to defend a title multiple times with his Rhinoa titles. The first 13-match tournament win streak by someone not named Doc Evil. I believe that is the second longest win streak of all time. Yojimbo's so close. I'm not sure. It's either him or Yojimbo for the second longest streak. The thing is, Yojimbo would win 2 tournaments in a row and then lose in the first round to D, and so those are all 12-round streaks, 12 win streaks. While I think Seto's 13 might still be ahead, I'm not sure. Seto or Yojimbo for second all time, and Seto did it 5 years earlier. He's the first player to win 2 Triad Wars. For my money, Triad Wars are kind of the pinnacle of tournaments. I know people like the prizes of SEs more, but to me, Triad Wars are kind of pure. One of 4 players with 5 championships, third all-time in wins, despite having played fewer tournaments than either of the 2 ahead of him. Second all-time in win rate of lasting players at almost 78%. All-time leader in wins in pure open tournaments. One thing interesting about Seto is he has very rarely played tournaments like TTAC, and in these open tournaments he has just been unbelievable. He is the longest period of any player ever between his first and most recent icon. He got his first icon in 2004, and he has gotten an icon here in 2024. He is the leader in rating on the site for the longest time period and the first to break 23 and 2400 ELO. ELO should not be capitalized there, my bad, typo. Just a quick thing on ELO. ELO is basically win rate adjusted for opposition. It takes a little while to reach the point, but you go up when you win, you go down when you lose, but you gain more the higher rated an opponent you beat, and you lose more the lower rated an opponent you lost to, that kind of thing. So it is a way of sort of taking win percentage, but if you played really weak opponents or really strong opponents, it adjusts accordingly naturally. And I think it has some problems with implementation for our formats. Like, we don't play round robins, we play elimination brackets. This messes with it a little. But the point is, Seto was the first and very fast to break these really important and huge milestones. As I said earlier, only 10 players have ever broken 2300. I think it's 5 or fewer that have broken 2400. And Seto has just been sitting 2400 plus for, a decade plus. I listed him as the best record versus Turds, but I had not yet updated for Kefka, or whichever one where Turds knocked Seto out. So I guess that's 3-1 now, but I think that's still either best against Turds or tied best against Turds. There's maybe someone who's 2-0, but, that's fine. He's 2-0 against Tezuka, the best versus him, 3-0 versus Broccoli, the best versus her, and 3-0 versus Midas, the best versus him. Alright, SirSmokes leads the most important category of all time. SirSmokes is the GOAT. The rest of this video has been a waste of time because this was the only stat that mattered, and he is the clear all-time leader. I believe Kana is in second. Slash of Time is the fastest player not named Doc Evil to reach 3 finals. It took him only 8 tournaments. And those first few tournaments he played were when he had horrific internet connection and the board would only load with 12 seconds left and you have to spam out a move. So you could argue that if he had had functional internet because he didn't live in the, wastelands of England, I have no idea where he lives in England. I'm trying to insult England generally, not any specific part. Please don't be offended unless you are English. But don't be offended by any specific part of English, just broadly England. Thank you for your consideration. So you could say he would have done this even faster without such things, and it's an incredible speed. He has tied most wins in a calendar year of any player ever, having won 21 tournament games in a single year. He is seventh in total wins. He is one of 8 players with 3 championships. I believe he was the fifth player to win 3 championships, and the second not from Mount Rushmore, maybe the sixth or seventh. At the slowest, he was the sixth, and he started later than at least 2 of the players faster than him. Yeah, Slash is incredible, and his 2009 was insane. Then we have Sujiro, the first and only player to ever defeat Karmazin in a tournament in 2005. 8th all-time in win rate, basically the same win rate as Kamikaze. I often argue Sujiro is kind of comparable to Kamikaze. I'm wrong, Kamikaze is better, but I think Sujiro is similar in like skill and talent, but didn't play as long. And maintaining it longer is really meaningful. Kamikaze should be higher, but Sujiro is great, and he is the first player to have the highest rating in a given year that's not named Doc Evil. Yeah, Sujiro was awesome. All credit to Sujiro. We have Torin. He did a bunch of things, including some deep runs in closed tournaments, including a tournament that I think was closed, but the bracket is sort of has gone around a bit, and no one can identify what it was actually for. It doesn't say the name of the tournament. It's clearly an official tournament. It clearly didn't finish. We don't know what was going on. I think Torin had a really good run there as well. But he has the highest win rate versus winners. He has won 5 of his 7 tournament matches against winners, which is fantastic. All right, Turds. Turds is basically, if you remove Mount Rushmore, he would have the most of everything. He's tied for most icons in different years with Deli, Mount Rushmore, so he'd be the leader. He has the most wins by a non-Rushmore player, well, tied with Vid at 78. Whoever goes further in the current tournament, I think they're both in the semis, so they're really fighting for who's the top of this. But basically, Turds is tied for most wins by a non-Rushmore player. He has the most championships by a non-Rushmore player. He has the most finals, the most semis, the most icons, and the most wins versus winners. Now, these are at the accumulation-y end of stats. Turd's win rates do not put him particularly above the 11th through 20th crowd, or 11th through 25th crowd, but his total number of achievements do. That's really impressive, and I think he is playing better now than he ever has. So the fact that he played for many years, some of which not playing as extensively and not being as dominant, brings down his averages but helps his totals. His totals are fantastic. At this point, his averages are never going to be some of the best ever, but his peak runs are really pretty good, and I think we're seeing one now, and it'll be cool to see how strong it is and how well he can maintain it. But obviously, this is a fantastic resume, and it means if you took away the big 4, basically all the big stats Turds would be the all-time leader in, and he would have a legitimate case for GOAT. You know, he has a case for that 5th place all-time spot. For me, it's Great Sephiroth, but there's a bunch of people who have a case there, and Turds does have a case. Then we have Ulti. Ulti is kind of forgotten, but she made 2 finals immediately. Like, one of the best starts to any player ever. The only, like, aside Doc Evil's 3-tournament run, Ulti's 2 tournaments played, going 10-2 with 2 finals, losing to Doc and someone else really good. Like, that's incredible. That's one of the best starts anyone has or will ever have. Would have loved it if she had played more because, you know, you always expect people to regress, but even if you regressed a lot from that, you're one of the all-time great players. So, would have loved it if she played more tournaments. This is an amazing start, and just wish the rest was filled in. All right, we have Unfixable, the first player to win an SE tournament, 2004. Virgil, the all-time leader in win rate versus winners. In his case, versus other winners, because he won a tournament. He played 4 tournaments. He played 5 games versus winners. He won 4 of them. Really good. And before you say, I bet they weren't great, like, one of them was set up. They were great, you know. All right. Then we have Vid, the first player to win a closed SE tournament, and tied with Turds for the most wins by a non-Rushmore player. I expected to find more things from Vid, but he sort of pops in a bit in different eras, and I never quite had some stuff to include, but Fid's obviously a very strong player in many different formats. We're almost done. Congrats to us. Oh, I hope to remember on Nightwish. I do think Nightwish has won 2 Team Rhinoas. I forgot to say it for him. I said I should have more stuff here. That's something I should have had there. Nightwish, winner of 2 tournament Team Rhinoas, I think. All right, we have me. We don't need to talk about me. Here is a list of things. I think they're cool. Your mileage may vary. Blah, 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 blah. Let's move on and close out the video. Actually, was there anything in here I thought was particularly surprising to me? Meh, whatever. Okay, Yojimbo. Yojimbo has a whole lot. Delhi has broken a bunch of his records in the return, so his resume was the one that looked Delhi length, but Delhi has booted him and stolen that thunder. He was the first player to ever reach 100 tournament wins. He did so in 2015. Given that he started playing in 2008, this is really quick to reach 100 tournament wins. He is second still in overall wins. He was the first and fastest to reach 20 icons. He was also the fastest to reach 12 and 15 icons. He gets icons fast. He was the first player to 5, 6, and 7 tournament championships. When he had 7 championships, I believe the second most had 4. Now people have caught up in the return, but without the return, he would be the very comfortable tournament championship leader. And you could argue that, if he was around, he would have either extended that lead or mitigated that others have eaten into it. And that they have had a chance to catch up that he doesn't have. You could also argue that the players are winning at a really high rate, and maybe higher than he sometimes did. He's also the first and fastest to 10 finals. Delhi has now hit 10 finals, but he's the all-time leader in finals with 13, I believe 3 ahead of Delhi. He's the all-time leader in semifinals. Oh, when I'm making this video, it's before TTAC finishes, so things can change. He's 4th all-time in win rate of lasting players, and just very high win rate. He's the all-time highest ELO rating, so at his absolute peak, if you take his win percentage and adjust for how good his opponents are, there is a very good case he has the strongest peak of all time. And he has the best record versus MC, who always gave me trouble, Chickeny, and SirSmokes, beating them really convincingly. So that's all I got. That's a bunch of records. I thought they were fun to put together. I hope there are some names in here you thought, oh, that's a name I haven't heard much about. I bet they were really good. They probably were. All right, let's end this video.